Hey everyone, this is Mr. K again. There was a request to kind of get an idea of where everything comes from with these challenges, like what actually, what instruction or what kind of stuff that you've read will actually help you do these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3.1 and 3.2 from the lists module here. So I'm going to kind of see maybe the thought process and where it how it goes. So, all right, I'm opening it up. All right, lists. So lists are awesome. It's if you're familiar with other languages, they're basically arrays. But so we start with this. So they just let you experiment. We're going to ignore experimenting for now. All right, so step one, here's lists. So lists are like arrays, like they said. You have already studied arrays and the float arrays unit, which is not true. Um, so we can just move on. But honestly, you don't need to know that to do this. So um, you can even run the code on the left here to see what happens. And so you just kind of go through and see what's going on. So looks like it's getting some lists here maybe from the command line, and it's printing them out. Here's another list that they made just straight up. They just made their own list and they're printing it. So what are they saying? So they say that you create a string list like this. So what it is of course normally variable, right? Equals. And then they're kind of telling you a list of things is a list of things. And it is starts with the open bracket, ends with a closed bracket, and then whatever you have inside your list has commas. They're separated by commas. So this is just a list of things. Here's numbers. That's a list of numbers. Notice they're kind of mixed, right? It's not just integers and floats. It's a little bit of both. And they tell you right here, if you are going to create your own list, kind of maybe remember that for later, you need to create an empty list before you add any data to it. So here's an empty list. Notice what's in between those two brackets. Nothing, right? And then they're appending 4 to it. What does that even do? If you want to know, just try it out. You can toss it over here, paste it, and then print it out. Let's see. And so notice this is a very important thing about learning programming is I'm not reading, I'm doing. I want to see what happens. I want to mess with stuff. And so look what I got here. I got this 4, right? What if I appended some more stuff like num list append Mr. K. Okay, I'm going to try that. Same list, right? It's a list of numbers. Let me do it. That's pretty neat. Just like they did up here, right? They're different. You can mix it, right? So that's making a list. Not so bad. So we made a list. Let's see what's next. What do they want to do? Setting list elements. So if you want to create a list and you know the elements already, you make it ahead of time. But they told us if you have an existing list, you can change any of its elements. So a list 1 equals Sean sets the second element. Remember, it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So the first one is 0. And that changes things. So for example, here you go. So look, we had a list that had Alice, Shanila, Bob, Tariq. We printed out. That's what we have, those folks. But then what did they do? They say a list 1. So we're using the brackets to say I want the 1th element, which is really the second element, right? I wanted that equal to Sean. I print it out again, and now Sean is in there. Neat. Okay. So let's move on. Append and insert. Okay, so let's see what's happening. Append puts a thing at the end. Neat, right? Started out with an empty and we appended 3 things and we printed out. What does insert do? Insert inserts an index, an element, I think, at a certain index. So what that's doing is that's saying put a 3 in there in position 2, which is, again, the 3rd position, right? And so let's run the code. So we started out with 1, 2, 4, then it inserted a 3 in the 0, 1, second position, right? Which is the third spot. So it inserted a 3 there, and that's what it did. So append, stick stuff at the end, insert, stick stuff basically in the middle, right? All right. List length, so we can see how long stuff is. So we use len, which is my dad's name. That's funny. But len is short for length, right? And you just put len and then whatever you want to find the length of. Now notice what they're showing you is you can actually find the length of a string as well. So this is the length of a string. They're printing the length of the list up above. Both of those should probably print out a 5, and they did, right? Because this has 5 characters, and this one has 5 things in the list. Okay, so that's not so bad. Looping with range, right? So this is a little bit like what we did before with loops. So what they're doing here, understand every line of code, right? And make sure you understand what they're doing. Here they have a list. It's got 5 things in it, right? 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Stop equals length of my list. So stop is 5. So then they define a range from 0 to the end of the list to stop. And they said for 5 in a range, print my list, and notice they're using that bracket to get each element. Okay, so this is the longer way. Here's a shorter way. What did they do? They just combined everything. Instead of creating a variable for the length, they just stuck it right in the range. And rather than creating a variable for the range and using that variable here, they stuck it right in here. Okay, and so they're doing the exact same thing again, but all of it combined. And here they stop it 2. They step 2, which that's a thing range can do, is it goes by 2s now. So instead of every single one, you know, when you do I in range, it does every second one. So what I like to do is before I run the code, I try to see like what is it doing? You know, like what do I think it's going to do? I think these first 2 are just going to print 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. They're going to do the same thing. This one, I'm not sure. Is it going to start at 0? Is it going to print out 1 and then 5 and then 9? Or does it start, you know, maybe on the 3? I think it's going to do 1, 5, 9. So let's see. Let's see what happens. Okay. This one, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. That's what we thought it would happen. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. That too. And then this one, 1, 5, 9. So I was right. Awesome. But that's what it does. So it starts at the first one, and then it does 1, 2 to get to 5, and then 1, 2 to get to 9. So neat. What else do they tell us? So they're telling us about loops. They're telling us that they'll step over and all that other stuff. Range with step, you know, all that stuff I just talked about, but they write it all out. I'm a person, I just kind of look at the code, but you know, everyone isn't a total coder. And then here's even easier looping. So all we have to do is say for element in list. That's it. Print element. So going back one, they did for I in range. So, or let's look at line 17 here. For every I in the range, get the ith element. Well, they're simplifying that even more. They're saying for element in the list, print the element. So it's doing all that stuff behind the scenes for you. It's just saying, go through every element in the list, and at each step of the list, it's going to use element. So really what happens is for the first time through the list, element is 1. Second time, it's going to be 3, then it's 5, then it's 7, then it's 9. You don't have to access it. You don't have to use the bracket notation. It's just done. So if we run this code, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, it's just printing out what's in the list. And so they tell you when to use range. Why would you even use range if you have this awesome thing? And the point is, sometimes you want to control the step, right? Every other one, or maybe every third or every fifth, whatever it is. Or sometimes you need to know what number it is. Like, for example, what if I wanted to print out not just the element, but where it is in the array? There, sorry. So I could do for I in range 0, comma, len, my list. And what you find is you'll do this a lot. And so one thing that I like to do is kind of keep recipes. Like they have cheat sheets out there, with like a bunch of stuff you can do with Python, but I like to do little recipes so that I know what it is. So for me, I would probably have 2 recipes. So I'm going to print I plus, and I'm going to add a space in there. Oh, no, I'm going to do a colon and a space. And then print that out. Let's see what happens. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's great, but that didn't tell me what was there, right? So let me do this. My list I. See? So 0 is 1, 1 is 3, 2 is 5, 3 is 7, 4 is 9. And notice what I did here. I had to use this little str thing because plus only works on strings. So I had to convert that I in the range, I had to convert that to a string, and then I had to convert my list to a string. So, challenges. So first challenge. Again, they're going to read this in, and what's very important is they're already strings. Okay? So you have to do this. The answer's over here, but don't look at it yet. We're going to add this up. So a number of people have told me they're like, sum doesn't work if I just do sum numbers. Okay, so I could print sum numbers. And that will not work. Why not? Because these are all strings. All these numbers are strings. So we have a couple options here. Okay, one thing we can do is just loop through it. How do we know how to loop? We just got told how to loop. We need each element, right? So I'm going to just do for element in numbers. That's going to go through all those numbers, and it's going to give me each element, each loop. And then what I want to do is I want to do like total equals total plus. Now this is the thing. I got to turn that element into an int so I can use it. The problem is I don't have a total yet. So let me make one. Total equals 0. In general, if you're doing multiplications, start out with 1. If you're doing additions, start out with 0, like we have here. So let's check it now. failed. What happened? So they gave me 13579, expected output 25. My output was nothing. Oh, what did I not do? I didn't print it, right? I didn't print my total. So then let me try this again. Done. Now notice something very interesting. And this is a Codio at work. They put in 13579. I should have put 25, but I had nothing. And then when I fix it to print out the total, it tells me my input's -2, -2, -2. But they said 13579. The thing is, I passed the 13579 test, and now they put in another test. And I don't know how many tests they have. Maybe they have 3 or 4 or 10 or 20. Usually around 2 or 3. But what happened is the last test is the only one they show you. And so this is the last test. So well done. Next step. We provide you with a number n, create a list, use a loop, populate it with n elements. So the main question is, where do we learn how to do this? Well, we learned how to create an empty list, right? We just went through that. I got an empty list. Now they said use a loop, populate it with n elements. Well, we know how to use loops, right? And notice they're saying do something with the index. So then I'm going to go back to the index version for like the tree. I'm going to go back to the index version. And then they want to loop n times. Okay. So I want to 0 to n. And then I got to do something in my loop. What do they want to do? Let's see, create a list, then using a loop, populate with n elements, set each list element to the index multiplied by 10. So I'm going to probably add things, right? I'm going to add things to it. So I probably want to use append, that thing we learned about just now. So I'm going to append something. I don't know what I'm going to append, but it said set each element to the index multiplied by 10. Well, the index is I multiplied by 10. So pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. So I think I did what they told me to do. They said watch out, if they do a 0, we should return an empty list. So I don't know. I think if if they give me a 0, the range is just gonna not do anything. So let's see what happens. Okay. Expected output your program output was nothing. So it looks like they didn't tell me very well, but they I think they want me to print out my list. So let's see. All right, let's give it a shot. And we passed. Okay. So that's that. Where did we learn this stuff? Well, we learned how to make an empty list earlier, just before this. And we learned a couple of different for loops for lists. One is with an index. One is with just every element. But of course, we had an empty list. So how to loop through n elements? Well, we learned that last time, right? So again, back to those like recipes, you could have like a 4in range, like that can be, for me, because I've done it a million times, it's a normal thing. I just know how to do that. But if you're not to that point yet, right? And you maybe have to look stuff up a lot, put that down. Okay, to loop through n elements, I need to use something like 4in range, blah, blah, blah. Make little notes for yourself so that you don't have to relearn it, right? Every time you can just go back to that thing. So I hope this clears things up. I hope this helps. the thing about Codio and the thing about these challenges is a lot of times it feels like these challenges are just out of the blue. Like we didn't learn anything like this. And you're right in a sense. We didn't learn how to multiply indexes by 10 or indices. We didn't learn how to populate lists within elements, but we did learn how to add elements to a list. We have learned how to loop, um, and we've learned how to print stuff out. So a lot of this stuff is just kind of putting all those pieces together. So, all right, cool. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you for anyone who listens to this. I appreciate it. And all right, cool. Well, thanks. I'm gonna stop recording.